Although the New York Rangers have definitely been a lot better this season defensively, it is a possibility that we could see the New York Rangers go out there and make a trade for a young left-handed defenseman, as I think, going forward into the future, especially after this season, there are some questions for the Rangers on the left side of this defense core behind a guy like Vladislav Gavrikov, because on the right side right now, you have a guy like Adam Fox, Will Borgen, and Braden Schneider. But on the left side, you have, of course, Vladislav Gavrikov, who is now locked up long-term after signing in for agency. But then you've got a pending UFA in Carson Soucy on the second pair, who has done a pretty good job, but he's a UFA. He's on the wrong side of 30, so maybe you would look to kind of get a bit of a younger piece who could be around for a bit longer term, possibly, to kind of take that spot on this second pair on the left side of this defense core. And I think Soucy has been good this season. I really like what he's done. I think he's been much improved from last season there, and he is definitely someone who I think this team should probably look to bring back. But I think ideally that is in more of a kind of probably third pairing role where I think he would be a really great fit. I think that's where he would really excel in, is a third pairing role. And this team does have some solid kind of more, bottom pairing or depth defensemen with guys like Matthew Robertson and Urho Vakanainen. But I think ultimately, if this team was able to go out there and add in a top four caliber potential kind of young defenseman in a guy like Pavel Mintukov, who it seems like now, after he has been healthy scratched for 3 consecutive games now, after the Ducks did play their game Thursday night, that was the third in a row that he was a healthy scratch in. So it definitely seems like, with all the rumors that are starting to come out there in the reports, that maybe he is actually available for a potential trade. And this is exactly someone that I think could potentially make a lot of sense for this Rangers team to go after. And right now for the Ducks, they do have 3, solid young defensemen there that are playing on the left side currently. They've got Jackson Lacombe, who of course signed a massive extension. He is a kind of rising star, you could say, a really solid, top pairing caliber guy, of course. He's only 24 years old. He's their top lefty. Then you've got Ian Moore. He's 23 years old. And then you've got another guy like Olin Zellweger, who is 22 on the left side as well. So their 3 left-handed defensemen are 22, 23, and 24. So they've obviously got some kind of nice young talent on that blue line. So a guy like Pavel Mintukov, who hasn't seemingly played too great in each and every single season so far. He's been in the NHL now for 3 seasons. This is his third. But each season, his numbers have kind of dropped off offensively from his rookie year. And also the ice time has dropped off a decent amount each and every single season so far. So it seems like he hasn't really kind of, developed quite well with the Ducks, I guess you could say. So it does seem like he definitely could be a potential trade candidate, and the Rangers, of course, definitely have some kind of prospects or a pick or two maybe that they could kind of throw in a deal to go back to the Ducks to get a guy like Mintukov, who I really do think could be a really nice add for this team. They, of course, have, quite a few, an abundance of kind of solid wing prospects who, may not be super high-end guys, but are some potential kind of middle 6 or maybe top 6 guys. Maybe they ship off someone like Brennan Othman or a Brett Berard or some of the other guys down there in the AHL, and it might just not be one of those guys. Of course, it's probably not going to be just Othman for a guy like Mintukov, but the Rangers have a decent amount of these kind of about NHL ready prospects that I think could be enticing for a team like the Ducks possibly. And just in general, the Rangers have enough picks as well to where they can chip off some assets and not have to worry too much about depleting their kind of pick pool or prospect pool too much. And I do think, though, a guy like Mintukov, being a former top 10 pick, he was the 10th overall pick in 2022. He's still only 21 years old, turning 22 on November 25th. So about to be 22 years old, 6'1", left-handed defenseman, pretty good skater, more of an offensive guy than a defensive defenseman sort of thing, kind of a two-way guy, but definitely more on the offensive side of things. But I do think this is definitely a kind of, buy low candidate there who maybe could, really turn into eventually that top 4 guy that he, had the potential to be at one point. But his numbers offensively, like I said, definitely have dropped off each and every single season. His rookie year in 2023-24 as a 20-year-old had 63 games played, 28 points, 4 goals. But then you take a look at last season there as a 21-year-old in 2024-25, he had 9 less points with 19 and then had 5 more games played with 68. So that's not too ideal there. You play more games, you have way less points. That's a pretty big drop off. And then this year so far, he's got 18 games played and only 3 assists. So the numbers offensively have definitely dropped off each and every single season so far. And also, the average ice time has also dropped off. His rookie year was almost averaging 19 minutes per night there with 18:51, but that dropped off in his second season down to 17:36, and then it dropped off once again this season down to 15:20. So each and every single season so far, his ice time has dropped off, his point totals have dropped off, which I don't think is ideal, but this is where you can probably go in there and kind of buy low on a former, number 10 overall pick, someone who was seen as a pretty highly rated prospect, had a lot of success in the OHL with the Saginaw Spirit. He lit things up in the OHL, was an incredible defenseman down there, of course, so hasn't quite been able to really kind of translate that to the NHL level, but in his rookie year as a 20-year-old, he did put up 28 points on a not great Anaheim Ducks team in 63 games played. So I think there obviously is still some potential there. He maybe could be that top 4 caliber guy. And with the Rangers, having some question marks, I think long-term on the left side of this defense core for that kind of second pair spot, I think this could be a decent fit. Like a guy like Susie, like I said, I am more than okay if this team brings him back, but ideally it's probably more in a kind of bottom pairing role than in the top 4. So that's where you bring in a guy like Mintukov and you can kind of have them battle for that second and third spot there if you want. You've got guys like Robertson and Vakanainen still has solid depth, but I really do think there is some upside with this kind of a player. And on Thursday, Elliot Friedman did come out with his 32 Thoughts article where he did talk about this Pavel Mintukov situation, and he went on to say in the article, after back-to-back healthy scratches, now third consecutive, of course, after Thursday night's game for the Ducks, word filtered that Ducks defenseman Pavel Mintukov would like to be moved if he's not going to play. He has fallen behind Jackson Lacombe and Olin Zellweger on the left side of Anaheim's defense. Ian Moore, who had a strong camp, was elevated in Mintukov's place. This is the 10th overall pick in 2022 draft, so Ducks GM Pat Verbeek will not be rushed into anything, something to keep an eye on. And obviously, it's kind of the same thing with Brendan Hoffman, where I don't think the Rangers, have to go out there and force a trade. It's not the exact same scenario, but it's two prospects who, aren't in the spot they would exactly like to be, and I'm sure, they both would like to, get full-time NHL minutes, but it's not happening, and I think with the Rangers as well, they don't need to force a Brendan Hoffman trade. They don't have to go out there and just get rid of him to get rid of him. He's still a prospect. He's still got some upside there. There is value to have him in the organization still. So I don't think the Ducks have to go out there and force something either, but I do think this is a spot where they've clearly got 3 solid young defensemen. They've got a star guy in Jackson Lacombe, who's like 24, and then Zellweger and Moore. So it definitely seems like it's going to be tough for Mintukov to, I guess, maybe get back in the lineup there. It's going to be a bit of competition, of course, which can definitely be a good thing as well. Having your young guys kind of battle for spots can be a good thing, of course, but also I'm sure it's not what, Pavel is ideally wanting because he wants that ice time. So we'll see what happens. Maybe he does get traded. Maybe he doesn't. But I do think if he ends up really being available, this is a player that the Rangers should absolutely be targeting. They have some questions on the left side long-term with this defense core. So adding in a top 10 overall pick formally could definitely be a pretty smart move. I think he's got some upside there. Definitely could be a contributor right away for this team. And obviously guys like Urho, Vakanainen, and Robertson have been solid and good at moments for this team. But I think it's pretty clear you definitely have a lot more upside with a guy like Pavel Mintukov, and in a potential kind of buy low scenario, it definitely could make a lot of sense for this Rangers team. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content, as I do post a video about the New York Rangers every single day. And also, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on today's video. Do you want to see the Rangers go out there and trade for, maybe a guy like Pavel Mintukov? Would you rather just see them kind of stick it out with this defense core for the rest of the season? Do you think they need to make an upgrade? Would you want to go after a bit of a kind of buy low candidate like a Mintukov? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.